Hello, everyone. It's Michael Jaco with Unleashing Intuition Secrets. Joined once again by Sheila Holm. Wow, we had a great interview last time, and we're going to have a much better one this time. Internationally recognized conference speaker and author, living supernaturally for more than 25 years. Business coach, the Lord has sent forth business to business, church to church, nation to nation on each continent except South America so far. I'm sure you get there eventually. So now we're going to talk about her newest book, An Eternal Plan Always Trumps a Human Plan. So you're here to save souls, save America, and save the world, Sheila. And I think you're the best messenger out there to do that. So thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you. It's been quite a journey. Quite a journey.
Yeah, it really has. And that little 5-minute video that you sent. Oh my God! If you want to play that later, that would be fantastic. That's beautiful. It kind of spells out, what you have been through and how you've had to overcome incredible odds to get this message out.
Well, it's what's funny is it's never been told. There's a little bit in Nation Restoration up until 2014, but when Flynn called in 21 and said, "Where's the second edition?" I was like, they don't need more of the story. And he said, there's definitely more of the story. And that's what you saw in the 5 minutes that is going to be a Nation Restoration second edition and book 6 and 7. It's kind of a combo of what I've lived through in order to be here. Remember Mark Taylor, he said, people just want to be like Sheila and live glory to glory. And he said, you better be careful what you ask for. You have no idea what they've put her through. No idea what they've put her through.
That's right. That's right. Wow. Yeah. You've gone through quite a bit and you have come out shining. And that's the way it works out, as you know, sometimes you go through extreme hardship, and on the other side, you come out and you're able to share a lot of great information. So on the back cover of your book, it says, after 18 books were released during 7 years of research in Georgia, especially the For the Sake of America 1 through 5 book series, Sheila trusted that the truth regarding how America was destroyed was available to the people to resolve the problem and help restore America to her job was done. So you're going to restore America, and that's your job. And so 45 points, an international attorney handed you a copy of 45 points used to destroy America and the world. And so you quickly realized you needed to get this message out, how to turn these 45 points around so we can, have a new beginning, save the world, and save our souls. It's quite a challenge that you've undertaken.
I wasn't really in agreement from the beginning. I said, this is so intense. Every one of the points are so intense that I can give people scriptures to understand how we compromised, and didn't realize it. They're subtle from the beginning. And that's why after it was almost all together, he had me flip the whole thing and present it backwards, because everything they do to us is backwards. And so you have to provide the information backwards, is what God said. And our friend, our friend, when he confirmed it, he says, oh my God, you mean you went to God and then you came to me to confirm what God just told you? But it sounded strange to me until I reversed it, and then I could start seeing how much more he could give me. And the more he gave me, and everybody thinks that this is just a summary of what he's taught me. Guys, this goes so much deeper, because between Chicago and Las Vegas, August of 23, I said, I'll do it and I'll add the scriptures. But do we have a chance? Because every 250 years, the culture disintegrates. And he said, so when was the worst 250? And I said, well, I think it was worse for the Pilgrims. They brought all the truth. And then by the time of the Civil War, we lost it all. Everything they came to do, we lost it all. They were putting laws in to bring Christmas back and Ishtar Easter, and it was all done by President Grant.
Yeah.
And so I said, I think that was really a lot worse than what we're dealing with. And he said, well, was that the worst 250 years? And I said, well, to me, you've had me focus on that, so I guess that would be the answer. And he said very quietly, did I not send my son? And 250 years after he was there, what did they do? And that's when this whole route started, with Constantine putting us into Gentile worship. We're never to learn what the Gentiles do or do what they do. And Christ didn't do any of it. And yet everything we're doing, we call it Christianity. And that's what we have to stop, because none of this is what he told us to do. He wants you and I to come together in fellowship. What do you have need of? And then I can show you how my God blesses, so that you say, well, tell me about this God. Who is this God that blesses his people? Because there is no other. The other gods are all dead. That's what people still don't understand. We've lived all these centuries and all the other gods are dead. So a dead God really can't do anything for you.
Yeah.
And so that's what really hit me. I was so embarrassed that I would say the pilgrims rose above what his son brought. But that lesson was huge for me. And that's when it flipped for me. And when I got to Vegas, that's when Trump was quoting my first research about the canal on the Tucker Carlson interview.
Wow. So how did he get your work? Who gave him your work initially?
Well, the research was given to our friend Juan, and it was given to my friend Stacy, and she's been a friend of Trump for 40 years. She was a Ford model, and in New York and Connecticut, and so she has known him since way, way back.
Okay.
And Juan has known him since way, way back. And so, but what I've noticed over time is that every time I ask a question of Juan, now President Trump has been answering in social media, giving me all the stuff. And that's what you're going to find in the book is the media responses of Trump telling me the prices, telling me who's got security, who's got all of these things. And this isn't the first time Trump has done this. When he asked for the second copy of my first book in the book series, For the Sake of America, the Okmulgee, the Mississippians in Macon, Georgia, they stole 2,300 acres, but they didn't just steal 2,300 acres of 3,000. They tore down funeral pyres, the mounds, the funeral mounds that they build. It goes up and up and up and up, and those are all their generations. They tore those down and put train tracks through. I mean, there's land. Now they're having trouble trying to figure out how to get it back. But President Trump got my first book in 2016, right after it came out, right before he was elected. And then he got the second one right after he was inaugurated. He asked for one in December. It didn't get there till after he was inaugurated. And he immediately wrote the bill for it in 2018. And in 2019, it was all done and he signed it. So he gave them back their 2,300 acres. So he's done things. These are just the major examples. But as you see in this book, you'll see several times that all we have to do is work together on what has to be done for each other. Because that's why it's one nation under God, is because his hand is on us. We have to just
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's truly amazing. So Trump is obviously, he knows about all these 45 points. And he's working to overcome them. That's absolutely incredible. And I think he's doing a really good job. He's moving at warp speed, I believe, overcoming a lot of difficulties.
Well, and the main thing that happened is every single layer to destroy us from each other, everything to isolate us, everything to cause us to think we're alone, everything to cause us to think we can't get it done, everything against the family. And that's the only time I really broke down during this whole experience. I was on with Juan and Stacy, and I just said, you guys, it's all treason. It's all knowingly destroying. You destroy the family unit across the board, and you don't have any kind of unity to even have a country.
Yeah.
And that's what they do. Everybody fights for themselves. And that's what they found at the Civil War. So we have not progressed. This has been no better. They brought in all the secret societies in 1864. Two guys that lived 17 miles apart in Boston brought all of this into America. And that is 40 years after Monroe said, you can't let them keep bringing all this stuff in, or we'll be right back to what we got away from. And so people think that the forefathers were horrible people and didn't do the right things. They were just like the original disciples, had horrible deaths. Their families were jailed and imprisoned and burned at the stake, and all this stuff was happening. We didn't realize it. But one of the 45 points is to discredit the founding fathers, to not have us think that they were worth anything or gave up anything to give us liberty and freedom.
Yeah, definitely. And, trying to tear us apart from each other, too. I want everybody, I think this is a great plan to bring everyone together so that we work together. And that's ultimately, what we should be doing. But that's part of one of their plans too, is
Mm-hmm.
to create this separation, destroy the family, create the separation, destroy all of the memories of all the things that we've accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a tragedy that this has been able to, slowly creep in. And so you go all the way back into the Civil War. I remember we've talked in other shows where you were at the monument, and they were pretty much leaving us clues in the monuments, what they saw and what they knew, that they'd fought this war, and this war was a devastating civil war. But it was, as many of us that have been in war and combat and so forth, we look back and we see that it's all manipulated. It's all manipulated so other people can gain more and more and more control over humanity.
Mm-hmm. And that was it. All they were doing were killing believers, killing the truth. You'll find all sorts of YouTube videos confirming, and then they divide all these different groups that supposedly were killing us or destroying us or et cetera. It doesn't matter. There's only two kingdoms. We're either going to fight for truth and live in liberty and freedom, or we're going to be enslaved and let them control us. And those are the only two choices. There's only two kingdoms. There's only two ways through this storm, through this battle. And what's so sad is, what you're noticing is, everywhere you go, if you're in the FBI, it's only if you follow the club. It's not if you follow the Constitution. All of these the military, signing documents that you'll go against your neighbors, the other civilians in your community. The military is trained to protect us. The police are trained to protect us. But if you want to get promotions, you have to do what the people in the club tell you to do. And so it's the same way in the church. The churches have been totally taken over. And people are just starting to realize it now, that they're in human trafficking. They're doing all of these things. What they're doing with your money, you would have no idea. All these organizations that were created to collect money to go somewhere else are no different than what Soros has done with his weird organizations to say they're going to protect children, and they're the ones trafficking. I mean, it's just everything has been false. And that's what Director Casey in the CIA said in 1981. He was in charge from 81 to 87, and I think that's when he died. I need to go back and look that up, but I think he died while he still had title. But he was the director, and right away in 1981, he said, we must keep telling them lies until everything they believe is false. It was just combined. Can you imagine how upset they are that we're still alive? Can you imagine how upset they are that they've done all these horrible things to us, and we're still appreciating each other and doing what we can to bless each other, and we're still surviving? It's really disturbing to them, because that genocide in 2020 was absolutely planned for several centuries, because 2020 is their ultimate. Recycle unto death is what it means to them, the number 20. That's why in every century in the year 20, there's always been a pandemic. And 100 years ago, it said it was Spanish flu. It was not the flu. It was not from Spain. It was the H1N1 virus. It's right on the CDC archives. So it's in their own structure, but they lied to us. And they did a vaccine, and everyone they gave the vaccine to died. So this time they made it so not everybody would get the same one. You know what I mean? So, but they were so geared up for this. If we would have known the truth about what 20 means in the other kingdom, we might have done something a little different, or we might have seen it a little bit earlier. But the only guys in the military that get through are the ones that will do what the instructions are and what their orders are, not what the Constitution is. And that's what kills a republic. And if you convince the children, so the only teachers that get to survive are the ones that stay with the club and don't become independent. So that's why the unions, and all of this is in the book, because the unions were to unite all the workers internationally and all of the people internationally and all the same thought pattern, to be like robots, enslaved forever, and that your families will be enslaved.
Wow. Incredible. And I know that you've been at events, we've talked about this several times. You've been at events where you were targeted with some type of very extreme bioweapon that killed several people that you were with and almost killed you, but you were able to survive that. Obviously, God's grace is, allowing me, several other people to continue our work. So this is a great reveal. What can people get the most out of this book this new book that you have coming out?
It explains exactly the layers of how they destroy families. People that are already done with the book have said, oh my gosh, you had to write it backwards because we had to see where we are now and then realize, well, I'm not going to let my family do that again. And I'm not going to let my family do that again, all the way back to number one. So it's so writing it backwards, we can see this was their goal. This is where they already are. And now that they're here, this is how they got here. So you don't let the psychiatric made up structure have you be evaluated psychologically, or your children evaluated psychologically, because that's how they pull families into CPS. That's how they, and all these things. And that's how they decide cases. When you do an evaluation of somebody, you decide whether or not they're saying the truth. Everything we're dealing with, and you gave the best quote out of the book about Barabbas last time, and that is the truth. They weren't necessarily saying that Christ was a criminal. What they were saying is they hated him, and they had to kill the truth.
That was so amazing to me. It just struck home. It was and that's what we've been trying to do, reveal the truth. But there's so many people that resist the truth. You look at 9/11, so many people have resisted that truth. Many of us are out here doing these shows, and people are like, one day you guys are like, we're winning. The next day you guys are showing us all this stuff that's coming, that's bad. It's like, I'm not even going to like click on your links that have that stuff anymore. And it's pretty much, unfortunately, those are the people that go, close their eyes and put their hands over here and go, I. And they're not helping us. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, they're part of the problem. So we all need to get involved. We need to work to counter this evil that's taken us over. I know you don't like that sometimes things are bad. In fact, things are really bad. But we do bring things good, like this book, like you bringing this information out. This is fantastic. This is beautiful. But you're bringing out information that some people will probably go, I don't want to read that because it's going to disclose too many truths. And that's very frustrating. What do you do to counter someone like that?
Well, everybody wonders why I'm not talking about MK Ultra. And I said, because all of us have been programmed.
Yeah.
We've all been programmed to believe the way we believe. And if you don't think you're programmed, try and be in a conversation with people after something like a COVID and you're across the dining room table and you think they think like you do and they don't think like you do, because every generation was going through the new layers of the 45 points. And so they kept progressing and progressing and progressing. The way MK Ultra started, and this is in the book, is that it was a bluebird program. And that's what Twitter is about. Twitter is a little bluebird that tweets. Mm-hmm. So the problem that we have is that we don't know what they know. We don't operate in researching what they know. And that's why God had me do the personal letter in front, is because if we don't know the true Father, if we don't hear his voice, if we don't align together in truth with his voice, only he is truth and life. And it's confirmed in Hebrew. And we did a little Hebrew video. It's a little 4.5-minute video. We've done that in the interviews before, because only the truth is the truth. And without Aleph, it's death. So there's only a choice between life and death. And we keep living through everything they're doing. And that's what I was saying about them being so angered. But we've all been programmed to think like they think in areas of our life. And it's hard to change. I've asked people many times, just if you're right-handed, pick up a pen with your left hand. If you're left-handed, pick up a pen with your right hand. Okay, now sign your signature.
Yeah.
How do you change? You have to let go of exactly what you've been trained in and come to the truth. But because everything was set up as a lie, that's why we don't know truth. And that's what, when you go through these layers, you're going to be shocked, because it's not just, we can't let them know who the founding fathers really were, or what they sacrificed, or what they put together for us, because then we would start living it and we wouldn't agree with what they're doing if we didn't let the psychiatrist industry grow into something. Because all of this these were the layers that they used in every other nation. We're not the only nation they've done this to. And that's what leans us into the point of thinking they're the truth-speaking people. And then because we want the truth, we listen to what they say, because we listen to what we call experts. But we don't get with the Father to get the real truth, because it'll resonate with you. We all have that DNA when we come. And that's why they're doing all of these things to try and change that. They don't want us to remain available to keep living through everything they're doing, because everything with them is death. That's what we don't understand. To them, it's glorious because they think they're coming back. That's what the whole reincarnation thing is. Some say you go up 4 levels and keep ascending to get healed, and then you come back. You don't come back to what? This is our journey. And this never, since the Garden of Eden, never has this been dealt with to the degree that our guys are paying a price. We've lost several lives that you won't hear about until all of this hits the next phase. But we've lost a lot of lives of people sacrificing because they know that this evil has to be dealt with. And dealing with it 6-7 times since the Civil War, and then it couldn't happen. And so this is the only time we're this far along, and the only time in all of lifetime for us since the garden is this being dealt with now. So this time that we're living in, if you can grasp this truth and say, I'm not going to let that happen to my family. I'm not going to let my children learn those things to be true. I'm not going to let anyone join unions to become thinking robots of what you're supposed to think because now you're in an organization, because that's how they've controlled everything. Because they control who the teachers can be. They control who the mechanics can be. They control who the flyers can be. They control everything. And we didn't see that that was a goal. And so it's hard for people. They go, if I would have known. And I said, but you know now. Let's start making differences together. Because that's why it was so critical to not just do the 45 points with scriptures. This had to be a training manual. And when I did the personal letter, I thought, this is going to be an explanation, guys, what he's given me in 35 years, so you can see what he's done. Wrong. He gave me so many things to help us learn that because this is so wrong, let's start operating a different way. And so because this is what's led us down this path, let's now take another path. So that's what the personal letter is about. I had no idea it was going to be so long. That's what took so long. But in the meantime, President Trump was giving me more codes. And so I was putting it in the book. So it had a 24 copyright, but now it's got a 25 also.
There's a point in the introduction where you say to President Donald J. Trump, for accepting to proceed with the Lord during your lifetime of preparation to do all Father requires of you during these times, the most unique days in all of his story. Wow, it's hard for me to even read that without choking up. That's amazing.
Well, all of our history, we don't realize is his story. That's why when he named the ministry, because I didn't want to name it, he said it has to be his best because it's to give his best to all, because he shod the middle part of the personal letter is absolute unity. He is the truth. He's absolute unity. And that's why when you're with him, you can scream out kofefe. No matter what you do to me, I will still rise because I'm eternal. You will fall because you're mortal.
That's beautiful. Very beautiful. Now, you also talk about preparing for battle, preparing yourself for warfare. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's in working with him in advance. For example, people keep wondering, well, did you ask him to do this or ask him to do what? And I said, no, Lord, it's always about thank you for putting me into rest with you and waking me up when you need me. And darn it, if he doesn't pick a time that I didn't think he was going to pick, so I'm laying down at 3:30 and you're probably not going to need me for 5 hours because healthy is 5 hours, right? But no. So what I learned is if I have 3.5 hours of sleep, and that's how President Trump is operating. Many people have confirmed this. Many nights he doesn't sleep more than 4 hours. Is that when you are down with him for 3.5 hours, then that's when and I thought I was making a deal with him. If you give me 3.5 hours, you tell me you're going to give me 3.5 hours, I'll lay my head on a pillow. When I was in Africa, out of 8 nights, I only put my head on a pillow 3 nights. I was up all the rest of the time. And people go, how do you do this? And a friend shared with me, she said her dad was so upset on how she did this. And so she said, God, you're going to have to tell me. And he said, well, just tell them I don't sleep either. You're just staying with me. Because he doesn't sleep. And so if I stay up in the word, I can stay up and I'm not upset the next day. All I do is freshen up and go again. The difference is that relationship. Everybody wants to know in advance how it's going to turn out. The gift from the Father is, it's bigger than you can imagine. The gift with the Father is, it's a treasure hunt. I've been places in this world that I couldn't have, even if I had a full-time job. When I didn't have a job, I wouldn't have been able to afford to go there. He's arranged for me to go to places, meet the people I need to meet, accomplish the things that I've been able to accomplish in the midst of nothing. Most of that 5-minute video is about where he has sent me on his dime when I didn't even have a roof over my head. Because for 12 years, he gave me great provisions. For 12 years, this is so funny about him. For 12 years, I had no roof over my head. Now I've been in Georgia. This year is 12 years. The end of September will be the end of 12 years. And so I don't know what's going to happen after the end of September, but I'm excited because he's showing me a pattern of, because that's government structure number 12. That's why there were 12 apostles. That's why so many things are done in that order. So the gift is not knowing. And that really upsets people. They all want to know what Sheila wants to do. And I said, Sheila can't get Sheila anywhere to do anything like what he can do. And so, I mean, like when I met you guys at San Diego for Truth Tour, I'd never been to a Truth Tour before. I'd just been at Doug Billings and I went home. Then I had something in Dallas and I went home. And the next week was Truth Tour. So then I drive right back across. So I drive to Missouri and Branson, Missouri, and I drive back. Then I drive to Dallas, Texas, and I drive back to Georgia. And then I drive from Georgia to California. And everybody said, but you're from San Diego. And I said, but I'm in Georgia researching. So I'm not in San Diego. They thought I was going to be local. And so all of that travel. But if I had not done that, there are people I met that I'm still connected with that I never would have been connected to if I wasn't there. And I can give you examples of everywhere that he's had me. There would be no reason that I would be on Reawaken. And I thought it was just because the Georgia Guidestones went down. But I never would have been in touch with a General Flynn. And General Flynn has sent things to the president, too, because he's in communication with him several times a week, always has been. And the president has confirmed that many times. And when I went to his first gala of General Flynn in 22 for America's Future, that's when he brought on the Defend and Protect the Children program, with Laura Logan being involved. And so I went to that. And what was so crazy is when I went to that, I had no reason to be to that. I had no way to be to that. God made it happen. And then because of the people I met with that were then people I could start doing at different events, inviting them like to Doug Billings and making sure that they're talking about the grooming in the schools, because Michelle Peterson has a grooming case with her son, who's now a Marine. And it never would have happened if she hadn't fought it for 3 years, because they're told to remove the text messages, and it was a teacher. And now you're starting to hear about all these teachers that have been grooming children. And I keep saying at the end of the school year, watch, all they have to do is invite him to something exciting, take the cell phone, and your kids are gone. Because they're only
There's a question. Do you believe Trump is chosen by God?
I think his whole life has been by God. That Hebrides revival was his name, Donald. His mother was a McLeod Nee Smith, which means her mother was a Smith. And that Donald Smith is the same age as the two Smith sisters. And they all lived within 5 to 10 miles from each other, because the Hebrides is a small area. I think they're all in the same family. And those two Smith sisters prayed in the Hebrides Bible. And when he said he had his mom's Hebrides Bible, the Hebrides revival was after he was born. And so his mom was already here. She may have gone to it, but here's the gift of it. Those two women prayed to have a revival because the fishmongers used such horrible language. That was their whole focus. God, could you improve their language? Could you get them close with you so they don't talk like they talk? Because the towns were small and these guys were kind of crude to the people. And so they said, would you please do this? The oldest one that got the vision was blind.
Wow.
You see how God works? The one who was younger, so I think Donald was in the middle, if I remember right. Donald Smith was in the middle. The older sister was blind, got the vision. The younger sister had such horrific arthritis, she was completely bent over.
Jeez.
because of the revival, and they never prayed for themselves. They were both fully healed.
Oh, wow. Amazing. So Kim Clement said he is God's chosen David, which sounds accurate because he's definitely going up against Goliath.
Well, and people forget he was military academy, highly respected. And all the pictures had him at the point of the spear. And all of that relates to where we're at now. Who has ever been able to go into the private city, the secret city in China? Who's ever, as a president, crossed the line and shook the hand and met privately with North Korea? Whoever has been in India and has been honored the way he was, they never fill stadiums like that, except when he was there. And then he went and met with all the people. And what he just experienced in Saudi Arabia, and nobody's even talking about Qatar because he's been in Qatar too.
Yeah.
And what they did in Qatar was unbelievable to honor him. They don't have those horse brigades out there in all regalia and all of the sheiks on the side of the road, all in their regalia and all honoring this man. And they're calling him the king of the world. He doesn't take on titles, but people keep saying, how can you take everything they've done to you, Sheila, and still want to write more books that get you in more trouble? And it's because I pray that I can operate the way he's operating, because all the hits I've taken, they haven't destroyed my spirit. They haven't destroyed my plans. They haven't stopped me from doing everything Father wants me to do. And that's why I put those 2 prophetic words in there in the book, or in that video too. In 2017, I was told by a prophet, and it shook me to my core, that I'm not here as a Job, even though they kept stealing things. And that's what you saw in that little video. Even though they kept doing all that, I'm here as a Joseph, and that I made an agreement to do whatever it takes to save America, and showed me the letters. And I said, I got to have a big confirmation. And then God gave me that confirmation 3 years later, 4 years later, when the president leaves in 21, the president's leaving and going to Mar-a-Lago. And what's his stationery? Save America. And so that was going to be the title of the book. And you guys know what he did last year. There's the fight, fight, fight picture. And then the big same letters, all in Roman numerals, Times New Roman, exactly as God showed it to me. And God said, is that a big enough confirmation? And then I was so upset. I said, well, now he stole the title for the book. And he goes, no, because that's not the title for the book. It's just, if you are willing to say, I'll go where you want me to go and do what you want me to do, he's already got it planned out. The only one who knows the end from the beginning is him. So if you're wondering who you can trust, and that's how people say that Trump knew what some of these things were going to do. He knew some of these things that were going to happen in advance, is that Father reveals things to you, but you don't know you're going to be doing it. So sometimes he'll reveal something to me, and it's like 3, 4, 5 years later, and I'm meeting the people who can do something about it. And I go, oh, well, God wants you to know this. But his whole life is like this too. That's why people in San Diego often say, Sheila, just tell me about 15 minutes of your day. It's about all I can handle. I'm sorry.
Let's play that video that you sent, and if there's any point you want to interject and start talking, and I'll pause it. I love this. This is an amazing video.
I do ask every publisher, every editor, and every newsman in the nation to re-examine his own standards and to recognize the nature of our country's peril. In time of war, the government and the press have customarily joined in an effort based largely on self-discipline to prevent unauthorized disclosures to the enemy. In times of clear and present danger, the courts have held that even the privileged rights of the First Amendment must yield to the public's need for national security. For the facts of the matter are that this nation's foes have openly boasted of acquiring through our newspapers information they would otherwise hire agents to acquire through theft, bribery, or espionage. The details of this nation's covert preparations to counter the enemy's covert operations have been available to every newspaper reader, friend and foe alike, that the size, the strength, the location, and the nature of our forces and weapons, and our plans and strategy for their use, have all been pinpointed in the press and other news media to a degree sufficient to satisfy any foreign power. The newspapers which printed these stories were loyal, patriotic, responsible, and well-meaning. Had we been engaged in open warfare, they undoubtedly would not have published such items. But in the absence of open warfare, they recognized only the tests of journalism and not the tests of national security. And my question tonight is whether additional tests should not now be adopted. That question is for you alone to answer. No public official should answer it for you. No governmental plan should impose its restraints against your will. But I would be failing in my duty to the nation in considering all of the responsibilities that we now bear and all of the means at hand to meet those responsibilities if I did not commend this problem to your attention. It is the unprecedented nature of this challenge that also gives rise to your second obligation, and that is our obligation to inform and alert the American people, to make certain that they possess all the facts that they need and understand them as well, the perils, the prospects, the purposes of our program, and the choices that we face. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. And it means, finally, that government at all levels must meet its obligation to provide you with the fullest possible information outside the narrowest limits if the press is awaiting a declaration of war before it imposes the self-discipline of combat conditions. Then I can only say that no war ever posed a greater threat to our security. Our way of life is under attack. Those who make themselves our enemy are advancing around the globe. The survival of our friends is in danger. And yet no war has been declared. No borders have been crossed by marching troops. No missiles have been fired. If you are awaiting a finding of clear and present danger, then I can only say that the danger has never been more clear, and its presence has never been more imminent. It requires a change in outlook, a change in tactics, a change in missions by the government, by the people, by every businessman or labor leader, and by every newspaper. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. Nevertheless, every democracy recognizes the necessary restraints of national security. And the question remains whether those restraints need to be more strictly observed if we are to oppose this kind of attack, as well as outright invasion.
Powerful, very powerful. It's beautiful. Well done. I love President Kennedy in the background. Wow, that's good. So it looks like you've been on quite a journey. You're revealing, you had the federal cases. It looks like they wanted to did they put you in some kind of witness protection program? Is that why they changed your identity?
They said it was the only way to protect me while we were bringing the judges up on charges. I never knew until long after. No one's ever, even the attorney watchdog group never put a judge in jail overnight. And so what happened was huge. And then they told me, after I went ahead and got the FBI FOIA and filed the revised report to the federal grand jury to file my own case by invitation of them, no other civilian has ever been able to, because it's all done by the FBI, indictment through the grand jury, and then prosecuted by the U.S. attorney. And because the FBI refused to give my file to the grand jury, and then when they did the FOIA, they were way over time on how long they have to do it within 6 to 12 months, and they didn't. And when they did it, they redacted almost everything, and they didn't include anything I submitted. And every day when I sent the Senate Banking and Finance Committee fax in, I was required to send a fax to them of everything I was telling the committee. They didn't submit. So they've removed all sorts of stuff from my file. So, but they're compelled by law. And when they've got a file on us, they're compelled by law to send it to the U.S. attorney when it's requested. And they refused for a few years. And that's why it took until 2017 to get everything together and get that case filed.
And meanwhile, you're suffering, and you had just gave up everything to push this case forward. You were, as everybody can see, you were way up on the scale of success. So that's very frustrating. Now, I think right now you were trying to take down the corrupt judicial system back then. Way too powerful, obviously. But now I believe we're starting to see it being taken down, and we have to take that down if we're going to win.
Well, and I told you before, I've told everybody, they're not watching the qualifications of anybody running for an election. So we've had people running for president who were born in other nations, have parents who were born in other nations, and that's against the Constitution. Right. But when I was speaking in Houston this a couple of years ago, when we were getting ready for the next election, I said, it's very important that you know that they have the qualifications before the election. So what happened in the 24 election, Houston, the largest county in Texas, Harris County, I believe it is, they voted in a DA, and the DA isn't even licensed to practice law in Texas. And now he's the DA over the county, because they don't have to have. Now what you're finding with the judges, they felt they were untouchable. That's what happens when you're in the club and they tell you, we've got your back. The only one who's your rear guard, and that's in scripture, the only rear guard you have when you put on the armor is God. He's the only one who's behind you, who knows what they're trying to do to you, who's going to give you advice on how to deal with what you're walking through. And that's why I can't take credit for anything that I've done. But in all that I've done, who would have ever guessed that I would meet you? And all of these years and everything I've done, the beauty of this is what Father does is connect us with the people who want to get something done. Right. And what a powerful thing for us to have the opportunity to come together. And for the people listening to us who are connecting with each other probably right now in the comment section to see what they can do together. This is what's going to save this nation. And that's why your beautiful producer, and I don't know if she's talked to you about this, if you want to take a few of these points and do little sessions on these points, because if we can understand how to stop it, because I couldn't put everything in here. I didn't want it to be 500 pages. I couldn't put everything in here. And somebody just brought to my attention, I said, no, I'm sure I put Monroe in there, because Monroe was the one that said, this is what they're doing to us. And I got moving all the pictures for the Cherokee that came through that they put in prison because he didn't have one of their law licenses. And I put the marshal in there, and the cut and paste didn't get back in for Monroe. So I'm going to go through the book again, because there's key things. But if you would like to highlight, because if we can get the people organized that they're never going to let this happen to our families. You put our kids on drugs in school. Who are they doing it to? The bright ones, the creative ones, the powerful hearts and minds. And so you get them on drugs, and what? They're drug dealers or drug takers the rest of their life. So they get them in this mode because they're that passionate. But when that happens to them, you're wrong every time you do anything having to do with any of the paraphernalia. And so you get so beaten down. And that's what people have noticed. I mean, Stacy's even said, and even Juan said, how you've come through all of this. And it's because they're the liars. They're the liars. And if we can get that, but if you would like to support that and you want to do that, I'll give you as much time as you want, because so many people were so complimentary about the last interview when we got attacked, that because if we can counter this, they can't touch us.
I totally agree.
Yeah, it's our whole
We
goal.
bring the truth out, it destroys all their lies. It's that simple. It's really that simple. And we don't have to go to war with them on a kinetic level. We just reveal their lies, and then everything falls apart. It's just so magical how that works.
Well, and that's what Trump understood. We don't need wars at all.
No.
In these countries, people, I hope people are beginning to understand. He's dealing with the whole world. The reason why they're calling him the king of the world, he knew the master plan. And that's why when people say, well, you know, he's a brand new Christian, and I really hope he's going to be, guys, he's tighter with the Father than probably 95% of Americans right now. He has been bringing us through this whole thing. And when he put those Abrahamic Accords together, that's where the peace level is. And when he did that, and that's why they were so angry at him, everything for destroying him, I mean, went to what level? I don't know that, because when I did the defense conversion contract, they called it DEFCON. And then when we had the next contract come in, it went from a 2 to a 3 or a 3 to a 4. And they go, oh my God, Sheila, are you at the war level? I didn't know DEFCON meant the war level. And so, so I don't know these things that you know or Juan knows, but we can be at war with each other, but no lives lost. Because the whole goal of the other kingdom is death. If we can just come to those simple basics, that we are for life and they're for death, and they want your entire family completely strung up as begging to be survivors, totally enslaved, totally influenced by everything in the world, and having all these idols and all those trends, which are completely a waste of time. And when you come with him, everything in your life changes. And that's why I know that the president's not a brand new Christian. When he held up that Bible and went to the back and said, this is our rule of law, we knew what he was going to be doing. When he said paper ballots, same day voting, we knew what he wanted. And people are still fighting him, thinking he doesn't understand. Times have changed. Everything's digital, electronic, blah, blah. No, we can do this. We, the people, can have the right kind of ballots, the right people voting, one day voting, counted that day, closed down. If it could happen back when there were no computers, it can happen now.
Absolutely.
So we can do this. So whatever I can do to support that, because it's so important, because the destruction of the family, and I'm sure almost everybody who's listening has family members who've been drawn in whatever kind of way, and it's so hard to get them back. And it was all done on purpose to keep us all divided from each other and judging each other in the family, instead of sitting back and seeing where is life and where is death. I choose life.
Yeah. And Juan was on just recently saying that we may have to, and he was like, he's frustrated by this. He says, we may have to re-register. And everybody in the chat was like, let's go. And I told him, and he was very excited about that. He thought that people weren't going to do it, but my audience just blew up, and I'm the same way. We're going to do what we need to do. We need to re-register so we get rid of all these people that are on there that shouldn't be there. Let's go. Let's do this. Where do we need? Where do we need to go? When we need to do it? Let's do it now. And then voting on the same day. If we need to, have 100 times the normal voting booths or whatever that we do normally, let's do it. We can do it.
We can absolutely do it. Now, the reason why there's pretty much only one way of completely starting over and re-registering is because I'll give you a California example. When I turned in the director of the DMV after all the destruction they did to me, but it wasn't pointed. I wasn't, trying to just name somebody, but she had 38 years in her career, and she was now the director of the DMV, but she allowed watermark of real ID to all the illegals, Because this is why they changed it with DMV, is that your voter registration is part of that. So all you have to do is check that, yeah, I want to register to vote when I do this. And now I have a real ID, so I'm a real American. And so, and what is frustrating is that the post office just came out with something. I'm going to send you a picture if you want to put in the chat. It just came out. And what it is, you've got two options, two areas of options. They want two IDs to prove who you are. And one of them is a utility bill. And what they set up these illegals with is a utility bill in their name. They do the things that they have to do in order to get the IDs, in order to, seem real. But you have to have two now. You can't just have a real ID. You have to have something in each category. And but I'll send it to you, and you can share it with your people when you want to. I don't want to disturb what we're doing right now, but whatever we can do to come together, and whatever I can provide, and if I can give further clarity and people have questions about each of those points, because it's a shocker when you go through that and go, I fell for that, and I fell for that, and my family believes in that, and what can I do about my family? Show them what it did to us. Because by the time you get to the end, I don't know, did we talk about Hiroshima and Nagasaki last time?
No, we didn't.
Oh,
And
by the time you get to point
before
one,
you go there, what's your thoughts on Trump and Israel? A lot of people have been asking that because a lot of people think that Netanyahu and Israel is corrupt. What do you think the thoughts on Trump and Israel?
Okay, I'm going to give out the truth, and I'm going to tell you guys right up front. I'm not going to write a book around it right now, is because Trump, what has happened is the lies about Israel and what is Israel. They made it a state of Israel in 1948, wasn't it? And they registered it as a corporation, and it's out of London, England. And so they registered as a state of Israel. When it says in scriptures, bless Israel, Israel is the 10 tribes of Jacob, Israel. He became Israel in 1906 BC. By 721 BC, 10 of the 12 tribes were marched off they were taken captive by Assyria. That's what the Jonah story is about. The king had 40 days to clean it up, or he's going to be overthrown. Then 100 years after, so that ended up being 712. Now he took him captive in 721. By 712, God had it. And you're going to be overthrown because you're not going to treat my people like this. It was all back to Gentile worship, just exactly where America is. On purpose. And so 100 years later, God sends Nahum, and there isn't 40 days to clean it up. It's, I've removed my people. You will never know where they are. Those 10 tribes became the lost tribes of Israel as of 612 BC. And people think, well, Sheila Holm said they all came to America. I said, no, from the mouth of the Euphrates to Savannah Port is exactly a straight line. But God lifted up the water just like he did the Red Sea, and there was no mud. They walked across. But they didn't just come to America. The first peoples in Canada, all these people. So since 612 BC, they aren't even in that land. And by 587, now it goes backwards, 587 to 586, because once Christ came, everything went backwards. In that time frame, the only two left, Judah and Benjamin in the south, were marched off to Babylon. But not everybody, only those who had wealth. So that left the other ones as slaves, just like the ones who decided not to leave Egypt. So there's all these patches and band-aids of who are the people, etc. So the tribes of Israel are not in the land of Israel as Israelites. That's what people don't understand. And the reason why the Palestinians that took over, they were the Philistines in the scriptures, the conquerors. The Arabs can't even pronounce the letter P. It's not even in their structure. And Hebrew scholars have tried to tell people forever, it's not what you think it is. That's not what's going on. But if they haven't even been there since 600 BC, then why are we saying we have to stand with that area? Because the flag is the Star of Remphan, and that is the synagogue. You synagogue with Satan and you tabernacle with Moloch, and that's right out of scripture.
Oh, you're crushing
those
it,
two triangles. But we could cover that on another program, and people keep wondering why haven't you covered it yet? I had to get this out because we didn't have much more time to get together because they want us underground. They were ready to nuke us. That's why the city in the whole structure in Antarctica for them that they travel to all the time. They were going to nuke us and stay there. And they have other locations underground. Antarctica is just one of them. I'm not wanting you to think that everybody's going to go there, but they have areas that they built for themselves that they can just nuke all of the rest of us. So if you wonder if they can do a complete thing, yes, they can. So we had so little time to do this when I was handed these 45 points from Todd Callender. So I had to stop everything. And that's why I haven't done interviews for months. I haven't been to events, and people have been mad at me. But guys, this has been so deep to get this out. And then now I'm going to do the second edition Nation Restoration, which explains some of what was in the little 5-minute thing you just saw, because Flynn said people need to know all these other stages, because he had already vetted me. I didn't know. And so 2014 is when that book was done. Well, that was before they started keep doing it to me, even as of last year. So that book is going to come out, and then 6 is going to come out in the beginning, ... in America. And then I'm going to go back into the in the beginning, ... in ancient times, because everything that they have done to us, Georgia Guidestones, everything, all these wars, getting us killed because we have to be gone, because we represent life. They only want death. Just that's the key. If they had to do all of this. And from ancient times, those 2 triangles, those of you who have seen my presentations on the Georgia Guidestones, and that's what the eugenics is. And the crown of the first Elizabeth in England is in the center of the ancient one. And then when it was revised, it more represents Elizabeth II. And on the chair, when they had him lean forward on the red chair, when he was supposedly being coronated in England, his coronation, he leaned forward on the red chair, and the gold emblems in the back behind him, the crown, his C3, and she was E2. And the first one was E, just E, not a 1. All of that is in that whole structure of the other kingdom. So that's why we didn't know that the Hebrew Israelites have not been in something called Israel since all that time BC. Jeez. They've retained the truth here in America. They're a Paleo-Hebrew 10 Commandments. They're a Paleo-Hebrew praise be to Yah. We didn't know he was Yahweh. We didn't know he was Yehovah. They were singing to him, and they were being arrested for using this language. So there are things we didn't know, and that's what I mean. We've got to start learning all the truth. That's why I put so much in this book and didn't. I mean, I cut it, guys, to get it to 500 words, but 500 pages. I didn't want it to be 500 pages. I wanted it to be simpler. But we've got to see all the angles against us to come together and turn it around. And that's the goal right now. We've got to unite our families. We've got to bring the truth to the generations, because you can't pass blessings on to the 3rd and 4th generation when you're just fighting individually to keep your family going forward every day. So the mom has to work, the dad has to work, nobody has meals together. We've got to turn it around, because they did all this by design. This was not just random.
Wow. So you're going to talk about Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Maybe we can end to that.
Do we have time?
Yeah. Oh, sure.
Okay. So that's point 1 and 2. And here's the humor. We had to capitulate from, and I keep thinking of the Biden and capitulation with the military in 2020. I don't know if you guys have talked about that, but anyway, he wanted to capitulate. And so I had to look it up, and it meant surrender. And so he wouldn't concede the election, but he would capitulate. So point 41 is our point 2, and then 1. 2 is capitulate to end World War, because so we didn't win World War II. We haven't been winning wars. And so we didn't win World War II, and we capitulated because we didn't want nuclear war. And then here's point 1. What did they do? As soon as we did that, and there was an agreement, and I've heard it's 15 million, the same as the Treaty de Hidalgo to get our land from Mexico back in Woodrow Wilson's time. So that are back to get to Woodrow Wilson's time and get all this land arranged in the Southwest. That same amount, 15 million, was supposedly what happened. And then we allowed all these scientists to come here, and then they cleared. You can go ahead and look this up. Oak Ridge, and Oak Ridge was cleared for 60,000 acres. 60,000 acres. And in that, We paid to build it. We paid to hire the scientists. We paid to build the bombs. We paid to put the bombs together. We paid to transport the bombs, and we paid the guys to drop the bombs. And the bombs were dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. You never hear about Nagasaki, but Nagasaki is the town where it's always been fully Christian, fully believers.
Wow.
I call it Christian, but fully believers. And since the 1500s, they've been killing 10 and 20,000 on a regular basis. They just keep eliminating them. And so they've been in their battle for centuries at that level. That level of killing has happened globally through all those centuries. The freedom and liberty in America is unusual that we've been able to retain. So then you come forward, and Hiroshima became the biggest population, independent of Nagasaki, the biggest population of believers. So, and I'm waiting for the maps still, but I couldn't wait any longer to get the book out. There are maps that the military gave to the pilots and the guys that were supposed to send them just haven't sent them yet. And there's some sort of a diagram, and I don't know how to get these. Maybe we can find it together, Jaco. There's a design that goes over the bomb drop. And that design, whatever that zero and lines, and they were showing me, they were sketching it out, but it's like a big circle. And then it narrows and narrows and narrows, and then you pinpoint it, and then you drop the bomb right there. The bombs they dropped were on the hugest churches in Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
Wow.
And obliterated those entire areas. Now, here's the point of it.
This is like another atom bomb actually being dropped, this disclosure right here. This is incredible. Wow.
Well, that's what I mean. Maybe we should take a few of these points at a time.
Yeah.
Because last time we tried to cover a variety of things all in one, and that's really hard. But if we take a few of these points at a time, and then Father's showing me that all these years later, he sent me to Japan, he sent me to China. I heard both sides of the situation they're in. They still think they all hate each other. My dad was concerned about me going to Japan because all they want to do is kill Americans, because he was sent to New Guinea through to Japan, and he saw the Japanese killing people. He saw them suiciding themselves because it's more honorable to kill yourself than to ever be taken captive. And so they were suiciding themselves. The kamikaze pilots were suicide pilots. And so what points 2 and 1 ended up being, I said, God, it's got to be more dynamic than they just drop bombs on the churches. And God said, I'm going to do it. And that's what he did. And he did it as a setup. We were set up with Pearl Harbor. The setup was funding China and Russia against Japan. Japan was set up to do the kamikaze flights because they knew there were bombs on the plane, explosives on the plane. They knew that when those planes hit, they were going to ruin our base in Pearl Harbor, and they were going to ruin the ships because it was going to come with such force. So all of these were, so he did a setup. I mean, I was so amazed because I said, we're so close to the end, and it's kind of boring compared to the other, so they bombed those 2 cities and we capitulated, which makes me really upset. And it was over in 43 before D-Day. It was over before 45. It was, and we were still sending our guys in to be killed. My dad didn't get home until the end of 45. So it's,
so let me see if I got this right. So they sent German scientists, of course, Einstein was a German scientist, to basically give us information to build the bombs. And we built the bombs for them with our money to blow up all these Christian churches in Japan.
It was all us. We brought them here. They never left. We paid them here. They never left. We paid all the supplies. 60,000 acres.
So Operation Paperclip was going on even during the war.
DuPont is still there doing experiments on nuclear. What else do we need to know about nuclear? Do you know what I mean? But DuPont is still headquartered there. Some people, and I know you would know this, some people call that a location of a farm, DuPont.
Yes.
And so the farm, the cutting of the corn, the harvest.
Right.
So,
Wano Saban says that's good.
They've been coding us, you know what I mean? In all of these things, and we just didn't know. We were raised, it was called the Manhattan Project. People there were under complete secrecy. They couldn't even tell their families what they were doing. And yet everything that we did was to destroy Japan. And that was on behalf of China, because the little island nation of Japan had gone into the harbor of Shanghai. And that's when I was in Shanghai. So all of this is in the points 1 and 2 in the book. God sent me to Shanghai in between the 2 Buckminster Fuller training classes in Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and Shenzhen, China. He sent me to Shanghai for that middle week. I didn't know that I would ever need information on Shanghai until now. Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
Shanghai Harbor is where they came in, and the Chinese were so scared, they started fleeing to the west of China. And China's huge.
Yeah.
And so they started fleeing to the west of China. They were still talking about it in 2007 when I was there, that they were invaded by Japan. And I thought it happened while I was flying in. And it happened in 1937, 38. That's what happened when we were funding China and Russia against Japan. Then Japan had to do Pearl Harbor. And our guys knew they were going to do Pearl Harbor. They already had the insight on it.
Yep.
In fact, the John Birch Society, John Birch was a missionary in China and with his family. And then he got in the military. I think he was in the army. And then because he knew all of the Chinese languages, Mandarin, Szechuan, Cantonese, he knew all these languages. They left him there to feed back information to America. And then when everybody was done with him, he was shot in the back and buried in a shallow grave in China. And that's why the parents of John Birch gave his name to be that. And so God sends me to Macon, Georgia for 15 months without a car from 2013 into 15. I'm like, there's nothing I need to know here. And then I end up speaking at a church where the building for the administration was donated by the John Birch family. It was the childhood home of John Birch.
Wow.
That was donated because the highway was going to go through, and the highway had to take a big curve. Guess where? Exactly where their property was. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
If we knew
crazy.
the truth, because there's nothing like the truth. And once you know the truth,
Right.
there's no going back.
Hmm.
But once you find out the truth, look at all it's connected with. And that's why, do you think God has been tight with President Trump?
Oh,
Guys, 5D is Hebrew, and Juan is confirmed many times. The guys that are really advising can only operate at that level, because what that is you're communicating even when you're not communicating.
Mm-hmm.
Because God's giving the same thing to you, he's giving to somebody else. And if they can't get there to tell you, then God's letting you know that it's going on. So
Yeah, really good. Yeah, there's been times I put
There's
out
so
information
much we
and
could
the
share.
next day Trump puts it out. I'm like, what? So I just feel like there's been times where we just have that connection. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and our friend, every time that I asked a question within 3 days, President Trump was coding to me. And other people enjoyed the information, but he was giving it to me, and I put it in the book. I didn't put all of them in the book, but the key ones were just like, oh my God, 3 days later, this happens. And 3 days later, this happens. And then we get to the Carter funeral, and my God, she's dressing like a pilgrim. They get it. Do you know what I mean? So whether he gets it because I'm like, well, God, this is the only way out of this, or because I told our friend, it got to him and he coded it back. But that's how we need to operate, because they don't have this power. That's why they said their plan can never change. Their playbook can't change because it's human wisdom. Human wisdom is limited, restricted, but we have fallen for them being the experts. And so we follow them, and everything they do comes to nothing. Only God's plans stand. And that's why the specific scriptures, and they were in book 5, because I was done at book 5. I think it's even, as somebody said, it was in one of our interviews where I said, yeah, that's the last book, because I went so deep in that one, I'm not doing it anymore. And that now that's a lie, and because there's going to be a 6 and a 7. But Flynn knew in 21 there was going to be more. You know what I mean? And I'm like, sir, But when I was talking to him, it was June 21, the month before I was at Target.
Wow. Incredible. So your book is on your website, all your books, hisbest.org. Great information in there. You got interviews in there. So all of your books in there. guys, if you're going to do, if you're interested in Sheila's books, it's always better for the author if you go to their site, because we do better that way, because there's a lot of people put their fingers in the pot, so you can get it at Amazon if you must, but ideally you go to Sheila's site. So it's available. All our books are available, obviously, on Amazon as well. So there's incredible amounts of information that's coming out. You're stunning, the information that you have, that you're revealing. It's incredible. So I totally respect everything you're doing right now. All the things that you have done to overcome the incredible difficulties to reveal. All of us are, doing our best to work together to reveal to everybody, and I hope everybody's listening, because it's a lot of hard work, but it's rewarding when we see people actually get it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm so honored to be with you, because you understand it at a level, and it's so fun to do these interviews with you, because you're not starting at zero. You're right in it with me, and I'm just so honored to be with you.
That's a great honor for you to say that. Thank you very much. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I hope you get a lot out of this. Please like and share it wide. It's amazing information. It's going to help a lot of people. Lots of love to you, and we'll see you guys next time.